Hello and welcome to the CIPS Queensland podcast, where we interview Queensland professionals to get an insight to their careers, their highs, their lows, their wisdom and their advice. So let's check out today's podcast guest.
Hello and welcome to today's CIPS Queensland Procurement podcast. My name is Peter MCIPS and I have the privilege of interviewing today's guest. For those who do not know me, I'm a member of the CIPS Queensland Committee by night, and by day I'm a senior procurement consultant with Peak Services. Well, that's enough about me. I'm very excited to introduce our podcast guest, who is Stephen Kehoe, Head of Procurement for the Brisbane Airport Corporation. In asking Stephen to tell me more about himself, the first topic he brought up was his children, which is wonderful. Stephen is a father of two beautiful children, a 3-year-old and a 7-month-old. Stephen tells me that the children keep him sharp in his negotiation skills, particularly the 7-month-old, who does not accept no as an answer. That's now enough of me talking. We'll find out much more about Stephen as this podcast unfolds. So without further ado, I welcome Stephen Kehoe, our special guest for this podcast. Welcome, Stephen.
G'day, Peter. How are you?
I'm very, very well, and excited. Excited for this chat.
Yeah, good. Same. And thanks for the offer of helping to contribute to the committee.
Our privilege. Stephen, I'm sure our listeners have already picked up from the few words you've spoken that you don't sound like the typical Queenslander. Tell us about your journey and what brought you to Queensland.
Yeah, good question. I'll try to give a short answer. I've got feedback before that I don't give short answers, so I'll try to give you a short answer as we go through. And that's mainly from my wife, to be honest with you. So originally from Ireland, Peter. I was lucky enough when I was 22 or 23 to get to spend 12 months backpacking through Australia and doing all that type of stuff. And as part of that, I spent 3 or 4 months up in Brisbane, which was great. So when my 12 months was up, I went back home, a little bit more work in Ireland, and then I decided, where am I going to settle? And I kind of always felt the future for me was in Australia. Just loved the way of life, the lifestyle, sunshine naturally was quite an attraction. Moved to Sydney for a few years, which I have a bit of family and some friends down there, so that was an easy kind of step in. And then in 2012, I was offered a role with Queensland Rail, actually. So I kind of packed everything up and drove up to Brisbane. So I've been here now in Brisbane since 2012, which is crazy. That's coming up 9 years. That just blows my mind, to be honest with you. That's been 9 years already. Yeah, it definitely does. And as I say, it's 20 years ago since we were backpacking in Brisbane, and in those 20 years, Brisbane's definitely a different town. Lots of development, definitely a growing town. A great place to live. Australia generally, and Brisbane definitely for me. That's the short answer.
Yeah, no, it's a great city, and I've had the privilege of working in every capital city in the country, and Brisbane is my pick. But even better, I get to live on the Gold Coast, so
there you go.
That's even better.
I do one thing I like. Procurement is a relatively small community and a close community. Definitely, in a town like Brisbane, it's fantastic. You know, you can build a network and kind of keep close to everybody because it's a relatively small city, which is great. Definitely,
and I guess CIPS helps to do that. Stephen, Brisbane Airport Corporation, Head of Procurement. So I take it that's the organisation which runs the airport. Yeah, excuse my naivety. Tell us about that organisation and your role, and maybe some of your challenges and day-to-day activities.
Sure. So a bit about the organisation. Yeah, Brisbane Airport Corporation operates the airport effectively. So it's kind of like, we've all been to airports. You go in and you put airport head on. Where do I check in? How do I get through security? Okay, am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Where's my gate? And then you just pass through the airport, right? So as a customer, that's totally cool, and you want to make that as a customer, you want to get through as quick as you can. As the operator of an airport, heavily regulated environment, safety is key, very customer-centric kind of environment. When you walk behind the scenes to see an airport and everything that goes on behind it, it's just a phenomenal operation to see the different things that goes on. So the Brisbane Airport Corporation specifically, while managed the airport and everything to do with airport, there's actually there's a massive land bank here as well. I think it's 2,700 hectares of land. So if anyone who's familiar with Brisbane, you have the DFO and you have all the industrial units around. BAC is effectively a property developer and property manager as well. So you got that diverse portfolio around airport operations, and then you got the non-airport or non-aviation business area as well, which is quite an interesting split between the two, and definitely quite an interest from procurement's perspective then as well, helping both sides out. So a little bit about procurement at BAC. BAC, kind of similar to Brisbane's journey, BAC has grown quite a bit in the 27 years since it was privatised. Kind of moved from being a relatively small company to a medium-sized, and over the last 5 or 6 years, it's definitely grown exponentially, notwithstanding COVID, I suppose. There was a restructure about 2 or 3 years ago. We had a new CEO come in, and one of the first things he noticed is, well, you guys don't have a procurement team. Who does your procurement? It was most definitely a decentralized model, so there was no procurement team, group, or even position. So my role to come in as the head of procurement was to stand up the function. So I was the first person in BAC's history actually to come in and dedicate my time to procurement, which was a super interesting thing to do, right? To come into a brownfield environment, and as I say, it was a decentralized model with a lot of kind of local processes, in different business areas. So it was come in, have a chat to everybody, see what's working well across the business, just put a bit of structure and a bit of a framework across how the business, procures and engages with the market. Bit of consistency and standardization across that then as well, and to make sure what we're put, it was good. I had a bit of flexibility and quite a bit of freedom to put a new process in place, but it was great kind of putting that in place, because you were definitely putting a fit for purpose process depending on value, category, all that type of stuff as well, which has generally been quite well received across the business. And it's been quite a journey, 2.5 years already, which is absolutely flown by. We've achieved a lot, but gosh, we've a lot more to achieve as well.
Stephen, one of the things I was looking forward to with this interview was sort of talking shop and some procurement topics, and one of them, which I wanted to discuss, was around structure. So you mentioned decentralised. Any thoughts on whether that's the right procurement structure for your organisation compared to, say, centralised or centre-led?
Yeah, sorry. And when I came in, it was decentralized, and we did move to a center-led model, and that's where we're at the minute. And I think it's very appropriate for where we're at as an organization. And I think it's it's that hybrid middle ground, wherever you want to call it. I like the center-led model. So we only have a small team as well. It's only 4 of us here in procurement. So quite simply, we would not be able to manage the workload of, never mind just going to market and engagement and all that, managing contracts and all the SRM and all the actual value that you can add, So we've split it out, how centre-led looks for ourselves. We've effectively, generally, split it between capital cost and operating cost. So OPEX costs generally is managed by ourselves here in the central team, and the CAPEX land generally is managed by the business. Kind of, it's a good natural split, but also a lot of people who are employed in the construction teams, they're very familiar with going to market, project managers, contract manager of construction. That's part and parcel of their day job. Their day job is managing contractors. They've been to market countless number of times, so we're quite comfortable with their skill set. We're just kind of putting a consistent process against that. A lot of the OPEX side, then that's what we kind of manage. And we do still have then that hybrid between the two. it's as you come in, right, and it's part of transformation and change management and stakeholder management and chatting to people and stuff, and there's the perceived lack of control, or well, I say, wait a minute, this is my budget, why are you now taking all of this and controlling everything? And say, I'm not. We're just here to help, kind of thing, And the centre-led model really helps that conversation come along. It's not like, I definitely did not come in, Peter, on day one and say, okay, everybody, stop what you're doing. Stephen Kehoe is here, and I'm telling you how to go and procure stuff. Not at all. You definitely come in and respect a lot of experience and what other people have to offer. That kind of worked quite well in letting people know, hey guys, this isn't about me coming in and telling you what to do. It's like, you guys still have quite a bit of power to go and do what you need to do. And that conversation, depending on who the stakeholder is, right, and depending on what their area of responsibility is, and depending on how long they've been in the organisation, maybe, and after a couple of conversations, you get a feel for, okay, how does this person approach the world? Are they going to be a key ally, or are they somebody going to have to spend a bit more time with, or what? And the conversation kind of gets tailored as you kind of move through that. The centre-led model kind of allows you to take that conversation where it needs to go, and what's appropriate for that business area, category, stakeholder, or whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm a career professional, and I learned very early in my career that all the money you're trying to influence is not in your budget or your cost centres.
Exactly right.
It's out there in the business, and as a result, that ability to form those relationships and influences is very, very important. So just to finish off on a little bit more with your organisation, what are your main categories of spend?
So generally services contracts. So supply security services. So you go to airport, you check your bag through the metal detector, and you walk through. So pre-COVID, you could have anywhere between 700 or 800 security guys employed across airports. So it was significant contract, managing. That's my key category in my area that we manage. Facilities maintenance, again, as a services contract. You have car park and landside maintenance. So we've got multiple car parks throughout the business, and they call it landside services, which is the drop off as you drive up, and you've got the 2 minutes to drop off or pick up, and you have the guys walking along there and managing that. But then they manage kind of it's almost like traffic management, to be honest. They're almost like traffic cops as well. Then you have other services contracts such as baggage handling maintenance. So all the conveyor belts, right? And you probably only see, and this is kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, when you go behind the scenes in an airport of exactly how big the operation is. When you when you check in your bag, you only see a couple of meters of a conveyor belt. When you get it off, you just see the snake conveyor belt when it comes off the plane, right? When you go behind the wall, it's just phenomenal, and it's almost a baggage handling system. It's a tech system with some mechanics running around it, and you see how that's all interacted across the terminal. And I was always, before I worked in an airport, because if I'm going home, I'm going to Ireland. You don't fly direct from Brisbane to Ireland, right? And depending on how cheap I wanted to be with my flight, there might be multiple stopovers, or if I say stuff, I'll just go straight through Dubai or Abu Dhabi or wherever. It's only 2 flights, and sure enough, my bag would show up on the other side. That was all totally fine, and it's just it always just blew my mind how it kind of happened. Managing that contract and making sure that those systems don't go down. Yeah. Because if that system goes down for half an hour or an hour, the knock-on impact of delayed flights and all that type of stuff is a serious issue from a customer perspective, from an operational perspective, from a revenue perspective, from a stakeholder perspective with airlines and all that type of stuff.
Absolutely, the brand name.
Yeah, exactly right. And and with notwithstanding procurement's job of maximizing value through outsource services, we do outsource, right? That's what we do. The cost pressures that come along with something like COVID, when our business is a volume business of people. If people aren't going through, you're not making money, right? So then the cost pressure that goes on, and I'm probably taking this conversation in a different way, say, making sure that you don't go too skinny on some of them services contracts, because I could save $1 here, but then the impact and the knock on that could have to the airport in a critical asset would just be, it just wouldn't.
Absolutely.
The good news story of that dollar that I saved, whoa, what did you do that for? Oh, I was trying to save a penny. That getting that balance right is definitely a challenge, but a super interesting challenge.
And that's that balance, the procurement professional needs to make between cost and those other aspects of the service. You said you've been in the role for about 2.5 years. I guess you really only would have got your feet under the table, and then COVID would have hit. That would have been a bit of a game changer, I guess, for your industry.
Well, definitely for the industry and definitely for procurement and for me at BAC, to be honest. For the industry, I mean, there's no secret, right? Planes, there's all sorts of news reports and pictures of planes parked up, and the impact broader than just aviation and tourism and all that type of stuff. And individuals, as I say, I live overseas. I have a couple of kids. My parents haven't seen them. My parents came out once when our first kid was just born, but we were planning on going back home. I'm definitely not the only person in that situation, and visiting friends and relatives is a massive market, and it's a decent sized percentage of air travel. You've seen then in March, April, May, when all borders were open in Australia, and then the bubble with New Zealand kicked off, things were kind of getting back to normal, and you're kind of going, geez, I think, are we there? Have we cracked it? And then obviously we didn't, so kind of went back again. So quite positive with where the industry will go as vaccination rates are kind of clicking back up, right? So hopefully into maybe, I don't know what Christmas will look like. We'll wait and see how the premiers all play together and how they manage their own stakeholders, I suppose. Yeah. But with regard to procurement and the impact I had on procurement, I'm a very positive person, right? And you always try to see the opportunity, and you kind of say, well, what's the situation? How are we going to deal with it? We were on a change journey here in procurement because we were new. We were only 12 months old in a 23, 24-year-old business, right? We were the baby. We're still trying to put change in. Yep, we changed the model. We had a new policy, procurement policy approved. We had a new procedure, and you kind of, you're making them steps, and you're kind of moving along. You're building those relationships. You're getting some runs on the board, and then bang, put the brake on, guys. You're not going out to market a huge amount. You have to pull all those contracts back in. That's where procurement stepped up. We formed what we're calling a contract response group, where we pulled all our key stakeholders, key contract managers together, and we effectively facilitated, led and facilitate what's our negotiation approach going to be to some of these key contractors, instead of, and this is the beauty of the centralised piece as well, decentralised, where you got inconsistency in how people are talking and what the different techniques, negotiation tactics are for that type of stuff, how we treat our contractors. We brought all that back in together. And through a lot of hard work, right, and a lot of conversations that everybody listening to this and in procurement would have had over the last 18 months, it really elevated procurement in the organisation as well. So it was one real positive that came through that whole situation, and it is still there, is that it really built some very strong relationships from procurement and with some of our key stakeholders, because guys, we're here to help, and we did help out, and it really showed the value of that central procurement team and in how you kind of manage that situation. And it wasn't just all about the dollar either. Nobody knew what was happening next, so it's like, you can cut contracts and all that type of stuff, but is that really how you're going to be treating some of these contractors, who you will be relying on? And you do want to have that bit of care as well, because they're all people. No one knew what was going on, right? It's not just about us and our dollars. And I really feel how we dealt with our contractors through that period it's almost taken the relationship with our service providers up another level. You always want to, you put your 2x2 together, you want everyone in the top right hand corner of partnership, where it needs to be. I've got a lot of good feedback through, and it's not just about me, right? We've got some really, really strong contract managers in the business, some great skill sets out there. How we kind of worked with our contractors and our services providers through that period has really kind of taken that on to the next level. So the impact COVID has had on the business, definitely, and it's definitely still being felt, right? And we are all hoping that we can fly again and we can all take holidays and all that type of stuff, and that'll have a knock-on effect for us. But from a procurement perspective and the timing of it, because as you say, I think I was pretty much just 12 months in the role. So, you're kind of thinking, geez, what have we done in the last 12 months? Well, we've done this. What have we left to do? Wow, we've got loads of things to do. And then bang. And you completely pivot, right? And then all them process improvement, review type stuff that was on your plan, that's definitely not your priority when cost turns, and cost is always a focus or value or whatever you want to call it. But when we had to pivot, we did, and it was a really, really positive time for the group, which is pretty cool, and actually led to my group. There was two of us at the time, and we actually inherited 2 positions from the business then as well, because like, wait a minute, you've no capacity there, you need to focus on. So we turned into a team of 4 then pretty quick, which is a small team, but it's bigger than 2.
Well,
so
it's double, yeah.
Yeah,
and hopefully, you'll get the opportunity in the future to, when the world gets a little bit back to normal, to be able to look at the advancing the procurement function. Back to some of your more original plans, Stephen.
That's exactly right.
There's something about you which is unique, which I wanted to touch upon. I guess if I briefly share about my procurement journey, and I'm a career procurement professional. I fell into procurement, so I guess I was fortunate. When I left high school, I received a cadetship with BHP, who were going to pay my way through university. Back then, there wasn't too many procurement or supply chain degrees, and I didn't even know they existed. They let me study whatever I wanted. I studied finance and marketing. I got to work, and on the first day they said to me, "Peter, we want you to be in procurement and supply chain." And my response was, "Oh, what's that?" and many years later, I haven't looked back. So I guess I fell into procurement. However, I understand you consciously chose procurement as a career path.
Yeah, I know. And it's funny, like, because the amount of people that say that we fell into it, and it's more, I fell into, I guess the team was called purchasing at the time, right? Because I don't know, procurement in Ireland definitely wasn't a mature function, definitely getting there now. So yeah, I did make a call. So I think when I was about, I can't even remember, maybe 20 or 21, I'd finished uni. And in Ireland and the US government have a reciprocal agreement of it's not like a working holiday thing. It's like when you're in uni, you can do like a 6 months kind of.
Yep.
It's like, it is a working holiday visa type thing. Yeah. So me and my mates headed off to the States for about 6 months or so when we were 19 or 20, which was great fun. And then I came back, I needed some money. So I applied for a job, and I'd studied finance and languages actually in uni. And I said, I'll just apply for a job. And I got a job in a construction company, which was just up the road from me, which was kind of perfect. And it was in their accounts payable team.
Okay.
So I was like, fine, yeah, whatever, I'll jump in, I'll do that. And pretty quickly, there was a position came up in their purchasing team. They had a very strong purchasing manager who needed some help, and I kind of had a couple of conversations with her, and she was my first mentor as such. And a position came up, and I said, I really liked observing what the role was and what she'd done. She'd be getting out to site and all that type of stuff, and seeing what was going on. And a position came up, and I said, I'm going to put my hat in the ring for this. I really like what's going on over in that purchasing team. Yeah, so I made the decision, and I was quite happy. I was successful. So then I started studying in nights and all that type of stuff then as well, and I kind of moved along from there, which was pretty cool. And I'm quite glad, because I remember at the time thinking, I don't want to do finance or accounts. I don't want to be an accountant. Yeah. They're great people, but not for me. And I'm really happy that I did, and particularly then, as you move different organisations. And when I moved to Australia, and moving into somewhere like Queensland Rail, which at the time they had a team between procurement, contracts, and supply relations, the team of like 60 or 70 people or something. I was like, this is fantastic, like proper procurement, like formal structure around how you do it. I was really glad I had that experience to take in and kind of take it through. So yeah.
Great. I guess whether you call it procurement or purchasing or supply chain, I guess over the last 20 years, what's your view of the function? Has it changed? Do you think it's evolved?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because I think I've about 20 or so, maybe a little bit more, 20 years experience. So I've thought about this before, as you hear different people talking about it, and it's kind of, over the last 20 years, has it evolved? It's evolved for me because of, as my role changed, and you kind of step up into senior roles and stuff, you learn a lot more about it, and how has procurement kind of evolved. Because I worked in construction companies back in Ireland, relatively small companies, it was purchasing, there was a construction site, you put a deal in place for it, I don't know, concrete or steel or whatever, and and then you call off orders type of stuff, and it was more about the logistics of getting it to the site on time, depending on a lot of work in the inner city as well, so a very constrained environment, and the logistics around that. How procurement has evolved, the ability, if you look at something like category management, right, the ability to step back and kind of look at a portfolio or a category or whatever, and how wait a minute, what do we need, or what are we going to need over the next couple of years, and what's the best, like stepping back a level and kind of looking at, okay, that's what we need, and that's how we're going to go and source it. And then the people out in the business can call off their orders or whatever. That's totally cool. It's okay. It's almost like the evolution is how you're going to negotiate, how you prepare for your negotiate, and then that's really where a procurement or commercial mind comes into it. It's not just you're going in and say, hey, you said it's going to be 100. Well, I'll give it 50. No, 90. No, 60, 75. That's not a bad deal. Let's shake hands. Really understanding, and whether it's should cost model, TCOs, all that type of stuff, or understanding body language and how you're going to read the other person, or even preparing your team. Say, okay, look, we need to have 3 or 4 of us on our side of the table. My role is going to be, I'll do the talking, and you could do the numbers, and you observe, and then you debrief after and go, okay, how did they react when we spoke about this? Or asking some of them probing questions in negotiation to try and understand what's truly important, or what do they need to win out of this negotiation. Okay, well, that's an easy one for us to give, so let's kind of focus on that and big that one up for that. Let them think they've got something out of that. You know what I mean? It's almost like the evolution of how you're preparing for that negotiation, and you might be locking in a 5-year deal. It's locked in. Like if you shake hands on day one and you're not happy with it, you go, oh, wait a minute, okay, that's a long time before you kind of get out of that. So in my mind, the evolution has been, for me personally, what I've been exposed to, I suppose, which has been pretty cool, and kind of how you can step back and get involved in. It's not what do we need today, let's go place an order for it. What I really, really enjoy, and I suppose evolution as well, is stuff like CIPS and the network, and the value of the network, and using the network. And I suppose that's something I definitely didn't do when I was younger, was to kind of look for people in the same profession but outside, and kind of listen to how they approach different things. I think the power of the network, and maybe that's with stuff like not necessarily various conferences, and if you have CIPS and everything that we have available online to us, and the ease of a LinkedIn reach out and kind of, wait a minute, we're in the same industry, actually, we were close together, I've seen you at a conference, let's have a catch up kind of thing, and the access to information. I think the evolution of how we network then as well is so powerful, and I've learned so much through various forums. Definitely CIPS, you see a presentation, and you might go to conference and see 20 presentations. I can guarantee you'll take at least five absolute nuggets away from that, and you go, wow. And they might only be one-liners, or it might be a motto, or it might be something different, or there's always going to be a presentation on whatever you're working on, or whatever you want to work in the next 3 or 6 months, and you go, hey, I've seen Peter actually presented. I remember he presented on that 3 or 6 months ago at the CIPS thing. I'm going to reach out and say, hey, what would you do differently? What was your lessons learned? What worked well? That type of stuff, rather than sitting on your own.
I'm glad someone was listening to my presentation.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Rather than kind of trying to solve all the problems yourself and kind of make the same mistakes that other people made. So the evolution of how we network, I think, has been very, very cool and very beneficial. If you're being selfish about it, you want to get as much as you want, and you want to contribute as well. So being part of the community has been good.
Yeah, and that is community. You got to give back, as well as receive, and as part of that journey, while you learn to try and also impart your knowledge on others. And I guess this is sort of part of the process, and what we're doing here today and right now through this podcast. You touched upon, I guess, the the sort of the profession, I guess probably the way I look at it years ago, I mean, procurement's always been there. Every organisation, over the last hundreds or thousands of years has procured. They've always bought goods and services. I think it was years ago an unconscious type function, and in more recent times it's become more conscious and on organisations' minds. And I guess that's why your current organisation, 2 or 3 years ago, thought, hey, it's time we got a procurement department in place and looked at this a little bit more seriously.
I think you're right there, and it's like, there would have been a time where it's like there's somebody who has a particular job and they order stuff as well. It just kind of lands. Whose desk is that going to land on? Yours. Go for it. Oh, okay, yeah, cool, no problem. Instead of having, wait a minute, this is the desk where that stuff gets ordered from. Come and talk to me. Yeah,
part of everyone's day job. So if we sort of tease that a little bit further, from a key skill set perspective, and I guess these are the things we look for in developing our own skills and also in the skills of our procurement teams. What are your thoughts, Stephen, on sort of the right skill set for a procurement individual or even a procurement team?
Yeah, great question. Really good question. I think you touched on it earlier on, talking about influencing and stakeholder relationships and that type of stuff. I truly see procurement as we are an enabling area, right? And as you said, we don't have any budget. We play with everyone else's budget. So it's like, I truly see procurement as a business area that meets the requirements of the company. The company will have needs that they need to go to market. They need to get this in. We are there to service that. If the business didn't exist, we wouldn't exist, right? We are there to meet the need of the business. Is it going to be a compliance relationship? I have to deal with procurement. So I'll do all my work and I'll give you a call because I need to deal with you to go to market tomorrow. Not great, right? There's not going to be a good outcome at all there. Or is it going to be very much, hey, I have a bit of an issue here. Who can help me? Procurement guys can actually help. They're pretty good. They've been helpful before. The ability to build a relationship, to listen to the issues that each stakeholder has, and kind of touched on it earlier, the early conversations I had in BAC. So guys, what's your issues? What's the big issues? What's the big problems that you have? The ability to listen and identify what is important to various stakeholders and go, okay, well, that's what I'm going to address for you, and that's what we'll do next. People see that and go, geez, they helped me out. That was pretty good. Takes the relationship on and just keep on working through that relationship. I think the ability to understand that, and we are a people focused profession. I truly believe that. I think we need to understand at some point, if in ourselves individually, if you have a big ego and you think everyone is there to serve you, you'll do okay in procurement, but you may not do fantastically well. Sure. I think if you can approach the business to say, hey guys, we're here to help, right? We all work for the same company. We don't need to compete with each other. Like we're all working on the same project or whatever it needs to be. I think the relationship is the foundation upon which everything else will grow. You will not be able to influence someone who you do not have a good relationship with, bar from saying Section 4.2 of the procurement policy says, yeah, okay, that's not necessarily influencing, right? And that's why I'm going to go back to the compliance issue earlier. It's like, but then you can manage your stakeholders really well. And that probably doesn't sound great. You can manage your stakeholders. If you have such a really strong working relationship with a business that you can have an open conversation, they say, man, I know we just done something there that really didn't work for us. Go, oh shit, okay, Jesus, I thought that was going well, but thanks for that feedback. Let's move on. Next time you won't do that, right? And they're open and honest with you, and they're not guarded, they're defensive of their own patch and that type of stuff. If you have that relationship, I say that's the foundation upon which everything else will grow. Particularly then if you want to have that if you're trying to do a strategic sourcing piece then as well, you need those stakeholders on board for you to be able to do half of what you need to do, never mind everything, right? If you're sitting in your own office kind of thinking that you're doing it just because you've done a bit of analysis, it's just not going to happen. So I think a key skill set is those people skills. We'll all refine that over time. You're all constantly learning, about how to deal with different people and different things. And you learn from almost every conversation or interaction, you learn something. And I know I'm definitely still doing it myself. Sometimes you go, could I have asked that question in a better way to get a better outcome? Or, you know what I mean? Or even if it's observing that the person on the other side of the table they're not having a good day or they're not having a good month. Okay, well, that's not the day for me to go into, right, I've been working on this category strategy for you. That's a different thing.
Yeah.
Just read the room about where you're at and then pick your time for when you're going to jump into different things. That's something that I've been learning, that kind of observation piece. And I remember someone said to me years ago, you've got two ears but one mouth for a reason. You got to use them in that proportion. You should be listening twice as much as you're talking. If I'm talking for a whole hour in an hour meeting, apart from a podcast you've been invited onto, well, then that's wrong because I'm not learning anything about what the need is and what the business need and all that type of stuff. So you got to be listening. You got to take all that information on, and then you'll be able to deliver upon it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'm with you. It's those partnering, influencing, relationship building skills, which to me are king.
Yeah.
Procurement's not hard. Anyone can learn.
Yeah.
End process.
Yeah, right. That's it. And it's almost like you need to break procurement down. If you're looking at the skills, right? I do think all those various people skills that we discussed, right, definitely a key thing, because you can learn. Like, you can read your policy and say, well, if it's 500k, I need to get so many quotes or whatever, right? And generally there might be a structure around how you do that and all these kind of templates and all that type of stuff. Then as you move into negotiation, then there's all sorts of training you can do, to kind of build your skills around that. And again, you will learn with every single negotiation, there'll something go, oh, that could have gone, I got 98%, I could have got a little bit more or whatever. Then if you look at contract management, or if you look at SRM, which is something I really see growing in value for procurement, and that's as I say, anyone can effectively run a tender, right? It's a competitive process, and you're going to get a deal. Yeah, you can negotiate something else in there, and that's totally cool. The skill set needed then to manage a contract or to build out that relationship, and truly drive value. As I said earlier, you might sign up for a 5-year deal or longer or short or whatever. How you drive value once you're in contract then as well is a massive part of it, So the skills needed around that, around being commercially minded and that type of stuff is almost different. Procurement is a big banner, there's a lot that goes under it. So there's definitely a different focus for those different parts of it then as well,
Definitely. With that in mind, I'm going to throw a few questions at you, Stephen, and give me some brief answers. Just a few words, just to get some of your insights. So, is a good procurement person a decision maker, a facilitator of process, or an advisor?
Oof, a little bit of all three.
Okay, sitting on the fence.
Yeah, no, I'd say definitely an advisor. Definitely a facilitator. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I'm going to say advisor. If I have to pick out of three, I'll say advisor. I'll say 60-20-20 advisor, and then 20% on the other two.
Okay, and you used the word earlier, which I liked. Customers. Are they customers, stakeholders, or partners?
Yeah, fantastic question. Depends on who they are and what their need is and how often you'll be dealing with them. Stakeholder management is almost an impersonal term.
Yes.
Customers and partners is a lot more personal. It's a lot more soft. You say, hi, are you one of my stakeholders? What? Am I? Partnership is a fantastic way of talking through to people then as well in the same business. So I would say partners.
Yeah. And do savings still matter, or has the profession progressed past that?
The 100% savings still matter. Like the profession has progressed, but it hasn't progressed past that. It's progressed with that. I would say. And whether it just means that your focus is not 100% on direct savings, because everything else you do should be some sort of indirect saving, right? You've got dollar saving, then the indirect side might be the value add, and value means different things to different people though as well, right? So if someone tells me procurement has progressed past savings, okay, well, what's your savings target for the year? How much have you guys saved? Okay, so you're now costing the business. Why are you here? Somebody above someone will make a decision. If you're not getting dollars on the board, say, okay, well, why are you here? So I think it's progressed with savings.
And someone once said to me early in my career, Peter, you need to sell better than you can buy in procurement. What do you think?
It kind of it depends on the organization. I think sometimes, not necessarily the individual. You need to. It kind of all goes back to that stakeholder management piece. If you have a really strong relationship with the business, well, then are you selling? It's like selling sounds like such an effort. Like I need to get you. If I'm selling something, I need to get you to buy something or to take something from me. It's like, you know what I mean? And it's like advertising procurement and talk about what you can do and all that type of stuff. 100%, I get it. We're not just working through the process, and I understand all that. And it really depends on the organisation and where procurement sits in the organisation. I think
So
the selling. Sorry.
Yeah, 2.5 years ago, you joined a new organisation, new kid in town, new team. At the end of the day, you want to provide a service to the business.
Yep.
Isn't there a little bit of selling in that?
Yeah, there is. Maybe it's just a term that doesn't sit well with me, I suppose.
Fair enough.
It's like I wasn't trying to. Everyone I spoke to was a BAC employee as well, right? We were all part of the one big team, so that would mean are other people trying to sell what their departments do to me? I was like, no, I know that you need to be part of this process because of what you can bring to the table. This is what I'm bringing to the table, and this is what we can do to you. This is what we can help you. Definitely, that can be seen as selling, I guess. I think it might just be the term that doesn't necessarily sit well with me because it sounds transactional almost.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
Yeah, and I kind of don't really want to sit in that space, if you know what I mean. But completely get the advice that you were given. I completely understand it. Definitely not sitting at my desk thinking, oh, it's just me. That's all totally cool. I spend most of my time out talking to the business about various things. That's probably the selling piece. We'll use that term for the purpose of the conversation, I suppose.
Yeah. No, good. I'm just conscious of time, and I can see we could be talking here all day the way we're going.
It's been good.
I just want to end with one important question. How do you think we can further the procurement profession in Australia?
That's a really great question, and it's probably been the subject of dozens of presentations in conferences. I think. And if I knew this answer completely, I'd be able to commercialize it, wouldn't I?
Yes.
I think embracing what's new and not just kind of sitting still and thinking, but we have a policy in place. That's how you're supposed to do things. That's what it is. I think we really need to move with the business and not be left behind as a back office or anything. I think we embrace technology and again it's moving procurement forward is how do you continue to make it easy for the business to do business while providing commercial and business outcomes, right? If the business has moved on and the business is very tech savvy and you were still there, pumping out tenders in Word or whatever, or evaluating in a way that you done 10 years ago, you're not making life easy for the business, so whether it's various apps or different software, different ways you're engaging, or if it's as simple as removing paper forms because everybody else wants electronic workflows and all that type of stuff, that's totally cool. And it's kind of like you're furthering on procurement then as well. That's how you're working with the business. I think where your focus needs to be. There's only so much your tender cycle from a dollar perspective will give you, right?
Yeah.
You can only squeeze the lemon so much. And if you have been in an organization long enough that you have seen that cycle at least once, and you're going back to tender on something that you did 3 or 5 years ago or whatever, if you've been there long enough to see that a couple of times and you've been to the market a few times, you're going, okay, well, what is maintaining cost success now, or what else are you trying to look for? I kind of mentioned earlier with regard to SRM. I think if for BAC, we are an outsourcing business, right? And everybody, why do you procure? Because you don't do it in-house yourself,
Yes.
whether it's a service or a product.
Yeah.
It's okay, well, who do you buy from? Probably they might be the best people in the world at doing it, or someone who is definitely better than us, because that's why we're getting them to do it. So it's okay, well, why am I sitting here saying you need to do it? You need to go to A, then go to step B, and then do C. Okay, do you understand all that, guys? Yes, no problem. Thanks you. We are all robots now. It's like, guys, what's the best way of doing this? How can we get this done in the most efficient way, cost-effective way, or whatever, you know? And it might be kind of outcomes-based type stuff, but really leveraging the expertise where you're buying the expertise from. You know what I mean? And I think if you can nail that well, I think procurement, it's all about how was the outcome. Yeah, that's fantastic. That gave us a great outcome. Totally cool. We won't be sitting there waiting to be patted on the back or anything, but that's all fine. We are an enabling area, and I think that's where I see kind of procurement pushing along as well. And then that takes it on to, that's just not while looking for someone to deliver that, the relationship in there and continuing to evolve how different things are done when you're in contract, right? Because you might have a particular dollar price, whatever, that you set up in contract. But how that service, I'll use the word innovation, right? Or how can we do things a little bit differently? Or how can you make a tweak or a change? Because, hey, over the last few months, that hasn't been going well. How about we tweak this, or we do that, or whatever? It gives a great outcome. Because it has to work for the company who are contracting, kind of has to work for the contractor as well to get a great outcome, you know? Can't all be one-sided. So I think really, really, really pushing that side of it as well is a key thing for the future.
Great. Stephen Kehoe, thank you very much for your insights. I'm very excited to share this podcast with our CIPS community.
Peter, thanks a million. Really enjoyed the conversation. Great to chat to you again. It's been a while, and I suppose that's a factor of COVID as well. We haven't seen each other for a while, but I really appreciate being asked. Really happy to contribute to the community. So thanks so much.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.